Welcome to the Heroes of Reality podcast, a podcast about the game of life and the hero's journey we all experience. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, young adventurers. Dylan here. And on today's podcast, I interview Professor Agnis Stibe. He is a 4-time TED speaker, globally recognized corporate consultant, and scientific advisor. He provides a disruptive Stibe method and tools to master any change with certainty. Professor of Transformation and Academic Director of Artificial Intelligence at the EM Normandy Business School. He is also the Paris lead of Silicon Valley's founded transformation technology community. I'm excited to talk to him about transformative change, both for the individual, for the self, for the organizations, and for cities at large. And so without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Professor Agnis Stibe. Hey, Professor! Look at that!
Hey, look at that! great chat. Having something special on the show.
Yeah, the Rubiks Cube method. I originally I was able to solve that way back in the day when some friends showed me some algorithms, but it's all gone to me now. Are you able to solve those?
Yeah, 2 minutes, pretty much. We can do a live demonstration if you want later on the
show. But can you tell a detailed narrative story at the same time while solving the Rubik's Cube?
Then it will take roughly, I think, 3 to 4 minutes.
Okay. I've noticed that the same part of the brain occupies both driving and narrative storytelling. So especially when people are turning and your brain starts to engage, you rotate and then the narrative shuts off and you're unable to tell the story as you're calculating those things. And I was curious if it was true with the Rubik's Cube.
So the truth is we have only one kind of capacity to calculate and process the different kind of sensitive information, like seeing the cube and thinking about the story. So therefore, yes, we are kind of overcrowding the same CPU, like the processor in our brains. And we know from the neuron networks and how it works and how it actually helps us to perceive the reality. It kind of have some limitations there. So yeah, I would say we know that we have the neuroplasticity, which means we can still improve the capacity of doing the both simultaneously. So maybe later down the road, after a year or two, when we have another visit, I might try to be faster with this.
Well, yeah. Well, you're grinding it down till it goes into like that whole unconscious competence section of your brain, and you can just have it run on autopilot, much like.
And that's actually what happens when you learn the algorithm. And we will come back to the algorithms because the transformation has the algorithm. All of the things pretty much we can kind of narrow down to some particular algorithms, and we can improve the efficiency of those algorithms. This is how I see the transformation and change. Speaking about this. So certainly you can do the one side quite quickly, like with the basic logic. Many people can do that. But then for the next 5 steps, there are 5 algorithms or 5 components of the algorithm, how you fix it. And then over time, when people learn, and I just look back to my own experience, first of all, you look at the video and then you look at the paper and you do very carefully watch how you turn it. But then later it integrates, and then later you don't think, and you're just switching the gears, like the first algorithm, second algorithm, the third algorithm, and hands actually do the rest. And I'm amazed by that. And my kids do the same thing, and I'm just like, okay, if you can do this, you pretty much can do anything.
That's impressive, and you're right. There's frameworks and algorithms run so much of what we do, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, and that the difference between art and science is conscious versus unconscious kind of algorithms that play through people's brains as they go through it. What led you on this path of learning and understanding and mastering and communicating transformation? What is the genesis for all the interest in this and this kind of lifelong dedication to understanding this?
Curiosity. I mean, we look at kids, they're curious about everything. And if you don't kind of suppress that, and I was super happy. I was so grateful to my parents. They didn't do that. They would just let me be. And I was strange at with my choices and behaviors when I was growing up. and my parents already then said, oh, it looks like our kid was going to be a professor. Because I was curious to observe. I was observing things. I was a very introvert, and I was processing. I was collecting information, collecting, and observing, and trying to notice what is different and how the things are relating in the nature. I did my first experience in early childhood. I think I was around the age of 9 or 10, going to forest and observing trees. And the trees get older. Some of the trees fall down, and some of the trees still stand, but they don't have leaves and branches. And I was like, okay, can I predict whether that tree is going to fall if I push it or not? So that was my first scientific experiment. And because I had a trouble with my weight when I was around in my adolescent years, like 13, 14, and I really got through my first transformation, personal transformation, going every day after lunch on the stadium and running the circles. And that was it really required consistency, persistency, and really dedication. I've learned, oh, if that's possible, okay, what's next? And this is how I got into realization that so many people on January 1st, like around the world, what they do, okay, New Year's resolutions, what it tells to us, people want to change. Whether they succeed, we see statistics, no. And I was like, maybe I can do something about it, because I've had my own experience and I can share that, and I can actually, as a scientific mind, can dig deeper and try to decompose, demystify, and actually then reveal how it works. And I enjoy that.
It's beautiful. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the history of humanity, it's a history of transformation, right? We've been able to evolve ourselves from being, middle of the food chain to the very top, to dominate the planets, almost like, techno gods, for lack of an example or term. What do you think is really the when you demystify it, what are the things that allow people to change versus people that aren't able to cross that chasm? Because I think everybody has somewhere they want to go in some part of their lives. And some people live lives of quiet desperation, wishing that they can, but not really being able to. So what do you think is the biggest culprit that is stopping people from actually being able to have a long-lasting, sustainable change?
Understanding. It's the same with this. I was miserable trying to solve it when I was a small kid, and I had it, and I was trying my logic, and I was thinking about myself like as not really like a loser, but like a not very, very successful if I cannot do it, because other people can do it. And I didn't know that there is an algorithm. The same with transformation, and the same with willingness of change. People want to change because they envision a better life for themselves. That's how we evolve. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, if we don't understand how the microwave works, if we don't understand how the bicycle works, if we don't understand how, I don't know, anything else works, we have trouble with it. We don't know. And the same with transformation change. If we don't understand how it works on our own personal, internal, biochemical, psychological, physiological level, then we are just we are lacking the knowledge. And if we are lacking the knowledge, we have the fear of unknown, and what will happen if I change this, and what will happen if I change that. And that makes the people feel discomfort about this, any change. They're afraid. And what I'm trying to put the change and transformation as a very practical things, and explaining that, starting from how the neurons operate and how your behaviors are encoded into the neural networks. And actually, for changing those networks, you just need two ingredients, just like every other neuron needs some energy, and we have the bioenergy for that. So therefore, for me, some people say, well, it looks like for you, the change and transformation is easy. And why it's easy? Because I understand it. And I'm sharing that so that people can understand it, so they take it for what it is. So really having the understanding, the knowledge, and also tools, which I also give out. So therefore, yes, it's about understanding it. And after you understand it, of course, it requires, as everything that you learn requires your effort. And then there's a choice. After you understood it, it's your choice whether you're going to invest your time to build up your next upgraded version, the happier, more aligned, more fulfilled, more achieving, whichever your choice is, or not. then it's your kind of decision. But before that, I think the first barrier is a lack of knowledge and resistance to acquire the knowledge. I mean, oh, I don't have time for this, and I just need to fix this today. So,
well, you're looking at, I mean, for example, everyone understands that there is, like, let's just say physical health. You're like, oh, diet and exercise. Just don't eat more sugar ever again, and you'll be fine, right? We all logically get that. We understand that. But that doesn't mean that everyone's going to do that. I mean, you can look at smoking cigarettes or any of these other types of habits that we know consciously. We understand that that kills you or that's not good for you. But there are these underlying patterns that have you still do it. You still have a cookie or a cupcake or a thing, what might be. So talk to me about, what do you mean when you say understanding? Because everybody understands that diet and fitness gets you in shape, but not everybody can make that change. So what's the distance between understanding an actual consistent execution that changes your identity?
Let's then make it clear. The understanding is about where you want to get. The lack of understanding is how to get there. And in getting there, of course, you understand, for example, if it's related with your weight loss, then of course you step on the scale and then okay, from this number, you want to get down to that number. But then it requires your changes in some of your habits. And then how to, even if you decide that you're gonna make that journey, I think the first step where people sometimes fail, they don't know which exactly they will apply in their lives, how they will change their lives. Sometimes they just start to randomly pick things and say, well, I want to do this, and therefore I'm going to do 27 things. And they don't have any structure, any mindful thought. Therefore, for example, what I give out to people, and that's the vectoral transformation model, where the green vector is pretty much if you point out and say, hey, I want to get my weight down from, I don't know, 200 pounds to 170 pounds. And to be there, after some time, I actually need to make my decisions every day in such a form that my decision is congruent and consistent with where I want to get. But then you can start with again, my suggestion is start with a very simple, doable, and only one thing. For example, don't open your fridge after 6 p.m. Just don't do it. So that's one thing. And be consistent. So it also counts that somebody else opens the fridge, so you are not allowed to take anything from there. Or if somebody took out something from the fridge, you are not allowed to take it from them. So in that case, if you are consistently moving, that means every single day you are not opening your fridge. You are on the green vector. You are on the arrow to get to where you want to get. And then imagine these other arrows, the yellow one over here and the yellow one over there, which means in this case, you are opening the fridge, not opening the fridge until 7 p.m. And this is you are not opening your fridge until 8 p.m. So you are deviating by the time, you're kind of pushing it back. But then again, that means you are not going to get to where you want to get. You are not going to reduce your weight if you are deviating. And this is a very tangible, practical, measurable, simple trick. And if you put these arrows on your fridge, and you, before opening, you look at them. I'm like, okay, it's 7:30. Well, no, it's like 6:30. If I'm going to open it now, I'm not going to be on the green vector anymore. I'm going to be on the yellow one. And the yellow one is pointing not to the 170 pounds. No. It points to the 195, something like this. So that's another tool, which is the second tool after the first one. The first one is realization. Transformation is actually replacing one thought with another one. And the second is how to be consistent. So the vectors come in very handy.
Well, let's divide and conquer these, shall we? But just to explain and just auditorily illustrate what you're describing is that you're saying that there are degrees of a vector, and let's just say 45 degrees is the vector you want to go on, and that's in green. And plus or minus those degrees, so 30 degrees, 15 in each direction, would put you off of your course. And so if your course is the resulting to be in shape by controlling your diet, then it's 6 p.m. Don't open your fridge. But if you open it at 8 p.m. or whatever, then you slide in those other vectors, which will then steer you like a rudder into a different island or a different location because you have now chosen a different daily regiment that will shift the trajectory of ultimately where you want to go. Is that to the
Exactly? Yes,
Yeah.
and again, thank you for translating in the audio. And this is the other side of it. So this is the explanation. So if you move and you had like a 1 week of consistency and the second week, but then one day you have a bad day. So I don't know, something happens. Something happens with your car. Something happens with your, I don't know, water. You don't have a hot water, and you think, oh, it's so late. I'm so tired. I just need to survive this kind of one small tiny thing. And as soon as you open your fridge, you're deviating. And immediately you are putting yourself on a different vector, pointing a different. And what I'm showing right now is the green vector and how you make a decision one day. And it's as you move away from it, you delusionally tell to yourself, I'm the same person. I just made this one step away and then but stepping back. No. Geometry doesn't work like this. Once you stepped away, you almost like you'd redirected your compass to a slightly different angle. And in the long term, it's moving away the further and further from where you want to get. This is just for to cope with our own psychological delusional mechanisms, and we have those mechanisms to kind of keep ourselves in the comfort zone. And why we have these mechanisms to keep ourselves in the comfort zone? Because we are, just like everything else, we are tuned to be very energy efficient. So we are saving our biological energy for a better reason, whatever that is. And psychologically, we just say, okay, yeah, maybe I shouldn't do this exercise because it will use my energy. Maybe I will need this energy for something else.
That's interesting because you're talking about, so if you're on the vector of 30 degrees and it's green, it's going to where you want to go. And with your vector model, you're saying if in one day you decide to open it up at 8 p.m., you're completely off your vector and you won't end up at the same destination if one day you change. Now, is it because one of the things I've noticed is if you do it one time, it's fine, but if you do it multiple times in a row, then you literally that you're keeping that vector course. Is your transformation saying if you mess up one time, then all is lost and you are off the vector, or is it recoverable? That's what I'm curious about with your model.
A very good question, and that's right to the point. That's my style. I always put it in very controversial because this is what brings the neurons into attention. Oh, what's happening here? Well, black and white. It's like a chess mindset. I like to play chess, and that's why I kind of see that why they have like two different colors when you can play with this. So I strongly believe it's extremely important to help people to overcome their own delusional habits of excuses, because all this society is doing this. And if everybody would be saying, well, yeah, you just do it this one time, we kind of self-license. And there have been scientific studies around this self-licensing. Once I do a good thing, I have self-licensed to do some bad thing. And it's in our genes, it's in our biology, it's how we think, in our psychology as well. So therefore, I really try to, first of all, put across the message, it's your choice. And by your choice, you either stick very strictly or very consistently, or you give yourselves this, what's that? The flexibility, this kind of room for for maneuvering. But for many people, it's they are not that ready to have this allowance, and they will be psychologically weaker and prone to be kind of slipping further away. So that's why I'm kind of saying, okay, this is how it works. And then later, when people got into the establishing a new neural network representing the vectors, they kind of understand how the game works. Then after that first phase is over, then you can, reveal to them, okay, perfectly, you have managed that far. So now you are, you have, let's say, you've proven that you are allowed to have this extra add-on, which means you can actually do it at times, like a one time here, one time there. It's not gonna. You are immune for like a big accidentally slipping away from this.
Sure. So what you're saying that in the beginning, when you're setting up and you're trying to do a transformational change, that if you give yourself allowances and the forces that have that wiggle room to be able to say, well, every 1 day a week I can have a cheat meal. The problem is that wiggle room will turn from 1 day to 2 days to 5 days to being completely off the wagon. And so what you're saying, in order to create sustainable changes, you need to stack enough weight or have enough habitual habits going for you, that if you make one small change after a year, if you do one cheat meal after a year, that won't have any effect on the whole thing. Versus if you do 1 week, then it's going to put you way off course because you don't have enough habitual change to be able to keep on that same course. And so it's strict in the beginning, but relaxes over time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and there is a good news in addition to that. Yes, this was perfectly correct. The good news is, if people, and that's natural, people are different. Everyone has their own experiences, their own situations, circumstances. It's perfectly fine. So again, I'm showing back the vectors. It's perfectly fine that you put on the end here. You say, well, my green vector is, I'm not gonna open the fridge after 6 p.m. every single day, but that will be exactly written here. So that for them, the game is such that they can do once a week, but if they do twice a week, then they deviate. So it's not to kind of push everyone to do the same thing. So everyone can find the best comfortable way to start this journey of establishing a new neural habits in their brains, which would be, I can be consistent. I can be following my own internal agreements. And that's what's missing. Yeah. People just cheat on themselves.
Well, and that's the thing. If you do that, you lose respect for yourself, which means you're training yourself that you don't need to live up to your standards, which puts you into a negative spiral pattern of learned helplessness. And you don't have that. You don't have the actual structure. How do you deal with the challenges? I do want to go back to the stories and go into it, but first I want to touch on something of, how do you integrate this into someone that has multiple different vectors they want to change, and not just say, I'm just saying diet and fitness because it's easy, that and relationships, or you've got multiple things you want to change. I mean, do you put up these vectors all over the place? How do you integrate these multiple different vectors that you want to change in your life?
Rule number one, you start with only one. You start with one to really experience the multiple layers, biological, physiological, psychological, societal, family level, everything. You start with one. This is extremely important. The failures with the New Year's resolutions are that people just set the goals that are like too big, and they don't know their own internal reaction on the multiple layers. Even with the weight control, how the biology, how the stomach will react, how the cells will crave for more energy, and that kind of thing. So start with a tiny thing. And again, for the fridge example, you don't need to start with 6 p.m. Look at what you do today. This is what I do as a scientist. You measure the baseline. Even when I look at the persuasive cities, so city behaves as it behaves. The city residents and visitors, they behave as they behave. You set out some sensors and you measure the baseline. Okay, how do they commute? Which are using the bicycles? Which are using the cars? Okay, what is the dynamic here? And the same also in this biological mega system, which is the body of the person. What is happening there? And you tiny things. So for example, if your habit currently is you eat and you open your fridge on daily basis, I don't know, on average like 10 p.m.
Sure.
Push it down to 9 p.m. See how it works. And you build up your confidence. Oh, I can do it. I can do this thing. Okay. And you become curious. You start to push your limits and try to experiment with yourself. And you see and you get the confidence. You can do anything you want. And it starts with tiny things. The same with let's say in the morning, you wake up and you would like to do some just basic stretching, like do it for 1 minute, which means you just kind of, it doesn't require like 30 push-ups or something. Just do some stretching, arms and legs and something like this. And then you will feel, oh, the body signals, the instincts say, well, this was good. Maybe you can repeat tomorrow. This is the gene saying to you, your ancestors were doing this every day. So maybe, and yeah, slowly do one thing, and then once you get the first confirmation, it works. Then make the next one.
Got it. And do you have I use the word rituals, but I guess in the scientific methodology, do you have a cadence for how often you review and update your vectors? Is this a week, a month, a quarter, a year? How often, and what does those rituals look like for you?
Because I'm a scientist, and the best subject of my scientific experiments, I myself, and I'm having this tradition of moving ahead very fast. So I really want to get to the core, get to the essence. So I'm not really doing it very diligently, to say so. So from the scientific rigor point of view, so I'm just, okay, this is what I've learned. I feel it. I'm just applying it immediately. And I don't kind of take like a very proper note. But for the people, when I'm suggesting them to use vectoral transformation, for example, the vectoral transformation model, I'm saying to them, there is a one very practical way how you can realize, everyone can realize when is the time. And the metaphor for that is the metal detectors. So for example, I don't know, maybe people have seen on the beaches, when people walk around with the metal detectors and find something, they give the signal, like the beep, okay? And the closer you get something which is in the sand, you don't see it, but it's something maybe valuable metal something, then it increases the frequency of the beep. So it's a beep, 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 beep. And that means whenever you have a question, and your question, for example, oh, do I need to revise my vectoral model? You can just scan whether it's kind of has a high frequency or low frequency. The same happens with if people don't know exactly what to do in the morning. They wake up and they have like 5 things, and they're confused. Which one should I start? The same thing. You just ask yourself this thing, and listen to the frequency, that thing, and you move like a scanning, like a radar over those. And when you get the highest frequency, then you know it's a time to do it. The same happens with the vectors. You look at the vectors and you feel whether that inner calling is saying, okay, it's time to revise, because it's even either too hard or too easy or too boring. We also know there is this flow model when the challenges and your skills are in a good balance. This is the same thing. You ask yourself, am I bored or is it too difficult? And then you can adjust that.
Got it. So what you use flow as a methodology and say, am I in flow? Because rightly, that's the highest form of engagement. And so you need to be challenged, otherwise you'll drop off. Or if you get too much anxiety, then you drop off as well. So am I in flow as a metal detector? Got it. Well, that's super interesting. What about, look at this, you're talking about organisms, right? Like we are an organism, right? We have a lot of competing thoughts inside of us at the same time, same as a business, same thing as a city. Let's first start with the self, and then we'll go up the ladder towards the city side of things. Is that you have inside, if you look at, like, when I look at the hero's journey, right? It's a story of transformation. It's a story of progress, and there's a lot of things that you need to go along the way. There's where you want to get to, but then there is this other internal storyline that is stopping you from where you want to go. So you want, like this, there's a terminology that says everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. And so, for example, everybody wants a fit body. I'm just using that because it's simple, but people don't want to use diet, and people don't want, there's that inner storyline. There's that inner kid that doesn't want to be told what to do, and will sabotage your desires for growth and progression and transformation. How do you handle that with that internal cognitive dissonance that you got going on?
It's a very good term in science, cognitive dissonance. There are theories about that. People just need to stop lying to themselves. Seriously, that's what I'm saying to myself. I can tell you a very honest story about writing a book. Because people, whenever I go and giving my talks around the world, they say, well, and what's the name of your book? I say, well, I don't have one. Okay, when are you going to do it? Soon. And also, I'm seeing on my own example. I even have like, there have to be very fundamental preparatory steps. So you need to get yourself prepared. And I've done a few major ones. So freeing up my mornings, for example, and not to allow any disturbance coming in. So not to go any social media, even not emails. I'm just booking it for myself. And then trying to let my mind and subconscious mind to find the best way how to put my content out into the written form. Because yes, I have the YouTube channel, I have my website, yes, I have my scientific publications, and that's my comfort zone. But book is not my comfort zone, and this is what I experience. And I'm also I'm debating with my own lies, internal lies, and the lies say, well, maybe the book is actually not that timely anymore. Everybody is watching the videos. Yes, it's coming over and over again, but we have the capacity of changing any thought we want. For example, if I believe I'm a bad book writer, and this is usually what I show as the as this pen, and this is a thought in my mind, or I am not sure my book will be a success. I think that would be more appropriate. And this thought is, I'm not sure that my book will be a success. And as long as I have this thought, nothing's gonna support, not the instincts, not the thinking, not that. The transformation in its simplest form is replacing this thought with another thought. And the other thought have to be the opposite. So that's the trick. So if this one is, I'm not sure my book will be success, I am sure my book will be success. And if this person that you see right now is having this other thought, my book will be success, of course, I want to write this book because this book will be a success. And this is at least the one very practical thing that is helping to replace and swap the thoughts, and remove or replace the thought. And it has to be the opposite. Otherwise, the two thoughts can live together. So I'm not sure my book will be a success, or maybe it will be a success. And these two can be living in your brains, but this older one will be more dominating, and it will be difficult in a difficult situation to make the choice for actually writing it. So simplest response is, be honest with yourself.
Well, it's interesting that I agree. Honesty is the best way, because there's that whole when there's this unconscious lying going on, whether it's like, you really, pick a thing, then you have this dissonance that's going on. How would you suggest practical and tactical? You're talking about being honest, but there is two sides inside someone. There is the desire for growth and progress, but then there is also the desire for comfort. And you're talking about using your internal metal detector system, but like, as you get uncomfortable, all your alarm bells will go off and go, just eat that Twinkie, put it in your mouth. Oh my God, you need it so badly. But it's like, but that's not necessarily